we're trying to maintain the same level of being professional as like from the whole stream. So I'm joined with the you have 5 people here in Tokyo, and unfortunately we have limited space, so we couldn't get the whole team here. Hopefully, tomorrow we'll see other faces during algorithm. Actually, no, because you're joining algorithm.
Probably I will join as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So some people will repeat for sure. So I'm joined by Boris and Joe. I got that right. And so maybe first of all, could you say a few sentences about yourself, and let's start with Joe.
Sure. I joined OpenAI in the fall of 2022 and worked first on custom models, where we trained custom models for our top API customers. And then I worked on something called reinforcement fine-tuning, which was a reinforcement learning fine-tuning product. And more recently joined the reinforcement learning org within research, where I focus mostly on methods for scaling test time compute.
What about you?
Yes, I'm Boris. I actually had quite a lot of experience with competitive programming in my life. So
That's an understatement.
Yeah. So basically, I started doing competitive programming kind of professionally 15 years ago, and I competed in a lot of on-sites. I went to, for example, AtCoder organized nice on-sites in 2017, 2019, which I competed, but I also competed in ICPC, won it in 2015, and also a lot of other competitions like Google Code Jam, Facebook Hacker Cup, Top Coder Open, some other stuff. And I joined OpenAI 2 years ago, and I'm working in RL scaling team. So basically, I'm working on the infrastructure to make sure that we can scale our RL runs as much as possible. And if we have a lot of GPUs, we can use them efficiently and produce very smart models. Yeah.
I'm just making sure that people the stream is working. Okay, so could you tell me what's the backstory? Why did OpenAI decide to compete this year? Because I mentioned it multiple times on the stream today and a few times on the Twitter yesterday that I did not expect OpenAI to compete again in a contest like this, because from my perspective, you had an incredible result last year. You got very high at IMO. You placed second at Heuristic last year, which is way higher than most of the people predicted, and you got a pretty decent result at ICPC. Although I guess a lot of people would argue that it's just a contest where implementation is the main bottleneck, and they have a practice mass have very limited time. Still, very impressive result, and it felt like there is nothing else to achieve. So why are you here again?
Well, we were hoping to beat you, but you didn't compete this year.
Yeah, I was smarter this year, and so I'll say that I'm still unbeaten.
Yeah. Sorry.
I have to ruin some form of narration one way or another. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're also doing algorithms this year.
Yeah, I think basically that it is kind of known in competitive programming that AtCoder algorithm competition is kind of the hardest algorithm competition. Basically, if you compare ICPC to AtCoder, they have very different style of problems. So for ICPC, I guess the most is mostly about implementation. Also some you need some ideas and so on. But in AtCoder, it's mostly about some observation, and you need to understand some patterns. You need to understand some mathematical structure of the problem, and it is kind of common knowledge that it's very, very hard. So I think it's would be great to showcase that okay, we can solve such problems as well. So kind of mark that okay, we are actually be able to solve all competitive programming problems in some sense.
So it's an ultimate test of algorithmic capabilities.
Yes, kind of.
I mean, in competitive programming aspect. Okay, so how do you feel so far about your chances of winning in heuristics? I'm sure we can see the results, so I guess Yeah, is this something you expected when coming here?
So I think the thing about these competitions is that because it's N of 1, there's so much variance. And so it's, we couldn't say for sure that we were going to win. We had done some testing on last year's World Finals problems and seen very strong results. And so that gave us some confidence. But, because it just depends so much what problem you get, we couldn't be certain.
When you saw the problem, what was your intuition about it? Like, is it something that you thought it increases? Like, essentially, how did the problem statement update your expected probability of winning?
So for me personally, I actually think that like current problem statement is like in favor of AI. So basically, I think the problem actually requires you to like come up with interesting like structure of like a maze you create or something, and AI can actually like create like thousands of them, try each different configuration and like choose the best one. For human, they need some like intuition to understand that okay, this maze works better, this maze works worse, and have some like only choose like maybe a couple of them to try and like iterate on this. So AI has like much bigger advantage in like basically the space it can explore. Yeah.
So I'm not sure if we mentioned that on the screen, but your solution actually has the main advantage, where it comes from, is not from the structure itself. It has this cute idea of using absorb blocks around on the outer ring, which is used to. It would be hard to explain, and we're not going to use flipchart because they would have to sit here for like 1 hour, and it doesn't make sense. But only one person from human competitors uses this concept. It's MathGorilla. And I think that this is something less intuitive, and it was harder to figure out. And the other concept that most of the people are using is to have a really long path. So that from information theory perspective, you have many places where you can put objects and get the output that you want. But none of the competitors were able to combine those two ideas. And probably the main reason is that in order to get this outer wing of absorb blocks, you need a spiral structure. It doesn't work with zigzag structure. And none of the human competitors use a spiral structure. So it's like, I guess this is the surprising part for me, is that the AI systems that you developed is surprisingly good at exploring different ideas. And just to give another data point, when I saw the problem statement, I wasn't sure if it favors OpenAI. It definitely didn't update me heavily towards OpenAI win. But over time, when I saw the archetypes of different solutions, then I fully agree with what you said. And what are your expectations for tomorrow's algorithmic contest?
Yeah, I'm actually pretty sure that we should win. I guess that the probability that we will lose is pretty small, and it's mostly if there will be some technical issues or something on our side.
So in other words, you're saying that this contest was hard.
I'm actually pretty sure that heuristic is at least it has higher variance. Yeah, because you can come up with different problems, and at least in heuristic it's very easy for agents to stuck at local maximum. So basically, if there is some nice idea, but which is very hard to try and very hard to come up with, maybe agent will start with easier idea and stuck at it because it gives so much boost initially. So and sometimes human can actually make a step back and come up with an interesting idea and use it. In algorithm, I think things is different because you don't have this optimization. So if you try one idea and you understand it doesn't work, you just need to step back and come up with another idea. So in this sense, algorithm is easier.
Okay. I mean, this agrees with my intuition, although I'm no longer competing algorithms. I only heard that AtCoder Finals is like this ultimate test of the hardest problems you can find from at least reasoning perspective. That the path to the solution is really long and unpleasant to some extent. But the gradient for getting from to the final solution is not smooth. I guess that's one way to put it. Okay, so I'm not sure if you will be able to answer that. But so the AI system that you have is amazing at creating solutions, but is beyond terrible with selecting which solution you should submit, and it's from human perspective it's nearly a trivial problem, and it's 31 hours into the contest, and every other submission is crushing humans, the other one is like kind of okay, and why is it happening? Because that's like half of the questions we have on the YouTube chat.
Yeah, so we can explain that.
Okay.
We actually have multiple systems running in parallel, and some of them are using much less compute. And we're submitting solutions because we're curious to see how well they do.
Okay.
So really it's...
You're saying we are submitting solutions.
Well, we are copy-pasting solutions from the system into the UI.
Okay.
Yes.
But just to be clear, the AI is making the decision.
Yes. The AI is not making a decision about which ones to submit. But we are not exercising judgment on anything other than the scores. So we have local scores, and we use those to decide which ones are worth submitting.
Okay. Yeah, I just hope there won't be this weird situation where you submit something and then there will be a human decision right at the end. Oh no, we have to revert that very quickly.
So to be clear,
I'm not the one judging, but yours are.
We actually don't understand the solutions we're submitting particularly well because we're not ourselves competitors.
I mean, to be fair, like when we look at the code, like we don't understand them either. Like it's alien language pretty much at this point. Okay, so one more question that I have. I mean, I have a few more questions, but so I asked essentially why are you here, but I think maybe let's go a little bit deeper with that. And where did this idea came from? That so I in a way I kind of would like to compare you to other frontier labs that, for example, other frontier labs don't use their models for competitive programming. So, from outside perspective, it is very unusual. So, what motivated you to essentially test? We don't, as regular people in the public, we don't see that many tests where some like really advanced systems are essentially stress tested, because let's be clear, it's not a GPT 5.5 or 5.6. It's probably something much better. So what was the reason? What was the idea? Like, why do you really want to test versus heuristic? Like, is it? Yeah, sorry. I'm not sure if I asked essentially the same question.
So maybe I can talk about like background story in general. Is it?
Right. Maybe let's start with the previous year.
Yeah. So basically, I would even start like even a little bit earlier. Basically, I think like 2 years ago when we just released like O1 preview, we also wanted to test it on some like basically shows that O1 preview is actually like a kind of step change in like model capabilities. And I think like competitive programming in general, like heuristic and both like algorithm, they are kind of good like test bed for actually showing that okay, there is some like reasoning capabilities which model has, and we can like showcase it. And we started it with just like our IOI participation around 2 years ago, and basically it was like interesting result. So
do you remember the result?
Yeah, definitely. So basically, we showed that like, okay, if you just like prompt model to solve like the problems, and you do it like one time, probably it will not get like any medal. It will be like it would show like reasonable result, but it would be like terrible compared to like best humans. But if you like ask model to do this like 10,000 times and choose kind of the best solution, then we get like gold medal score. Basically, it shows that like, okay, you can like do like test time compute scaling and like
a very primitive way.
Yeah, just like 10,000 like
so
with different seeds.
So the way of choosing which solution to submit was like just the most common one?
This is interesting question. So basically,
I know that AlphaCode did that.
Yeah, so basically, exactly like 2 years ago when we did this, we actually like created some like custom harness which tries to like generate some test cases and like combine solutions like which show like similar results on test cases and like pick some number of solutions like which improves the score. And basically, it didn't do well.
Okay.
And I don't remember specific results, but I think we were either like had like bronze medal or like a little bit before the bronze medal, something like this.
Okay.
But
and bronze medal is 50%.
Yeah, something like this. But if you like have kind of oracle which tells you like which submission is the best, then you get like gold medal.
And Oracle is like the external, another model or maybe...
So at that time, we didn't have this Oracle. We just published the result that, okay, if you potentially would have this Oracle, then it would be like gold medal. But next year, when we participated in IOI, we actually didn't need to do any like special harness. We didn't need like special Oracle. We just asked model like, do you believe you solved the problem? And it was enough, basically. You just like 10,000 times could like ask model to solve the problem, then ask like, is the solution correct? And if it says correct, you submit it. Basically, as simple as that. And that was like more than enough to get like gold medal. So like every year, actually like progress improves like dramatically.
Okay, but that's IOI. But
yeah.
What was the reason? And for people that do not know, Boris, you were one of the authors of your AI system in the last year that placed second.
Yeah. And I think like basically heuristics actually interesting in a sense that it kind of similar to actual like research which people are doing.
Yeah.
I think like you still like see that basically in heuristic we are doing pretty well, but they still don't have this like automated researcher, but we are like moving towards this goal. But I think it's like great like showcase that if you scale test time compute, you can like create system which like explore different solutions which can like understand that, okay, this path is bad, this path is good, and like try to explore more in like one part of the solution space and so on. So I think participating in like heuristic competitions actually like showcase that like models are progressing in this direction, and like hopefully soon we'll have like models which are doing like good like actual research in like computer science and ML and so on.
Yeah, I like to repeat that at least from my outside perspective, optimization and heuristic problems are very good proxy for how good automated research can be, because I'm biased. I've done a lot of machine learning contests as well as heuristic contests, and probably my time was split evenly between those two. And from my perspective, heuristic contests were always way more ambitious. They required machine learning contests were bottlenecked by knowledge, and heuristic contests were bottlenecked by reasoning. And yeah, so I understand that, but yeah, it's nice. So, but how the original idea came?
Yeah, by the way, like one extra thought about this, I think the kind of complexity of the problem actually depends, like it is different for humans and for agents. I think for humans, you say that like, okay, maybe like heuristic contests like require more thinking and like ML is like kind of less. But I think for agents, important part is actually like your iteration time. Basically in heuristic, you can just like test submission every second. In ML, you actually need to run like experiments which are like hours or days long.
That's a good
so it's
point.
like
when
much harder.
When the cost of implementing the code like essentially goes almost towards zero, then yeah, we're bottlenecked by execution speed.
Yeah.
That's a very good point. A terrifying point as well. So you're saying that the best way for us to design the problem versus AI was to create a problem that has extremely high variance. So it would be impossible for you to run, like, I don't know what the number is, but like that many different agents at the same time, and like essentially would be bottlenecked by testing, not by generating the code, maybe.
In some sense, it is true, yeah. But also, like, I guess if the problem has like high variance, it is not very good problem, I guess, even for humans.
Yes, I hate those, but I just randomly throwing ideas for AtCoder. We need every idea to create an adversarial problem for AI that you can have. Okay.
What do you think about human AI centaurs? Now that, I mean, we were talking before.
You mean human plus AI?
Yes. Yes.
It's, I mean, first of all, it's my opinion about that changes every month, and that's so one issue that depends on our workflow. So I feel that the more advanced coding agents get, the more alien the code is, which means the main input from a human side is the ideas, is that intuition, essentially reducing down the potential solution space of interesting ideas, narrowing it down as much as we can, which in a way it's sad because we're there to reduce the compute costs. It's a pretty sad perspective of it. But I'm the one asking questions here. At least I'm sure our viewers have enough of me, and they will have to endure me for at least 2 more hours. I do feel sorry for them. There are so many questions, and I kind of want to avoid the situations where you will just, say that, oh, we cannot talk about it. I mean, originally I wanted to say GPT 5.6 when, but
I guess it's public information.
Yeah, it's public now. So, this ship has sailed. So one, there's 5 of you here from OpenAI. Could you tell how much effort was put into the heuristic system and algorithm system? And maybe if you can compare it to the version from 2025.
Yeah, so not a tremendous amount of effort. So
sad face.
Not to be vain, but we are interested more generally in what we can do with a lot of test time compute. And so we spend a lot of time internally thinking about how to usefully apply a lot of test time compute to problems that are valuable to us. So our harness is not especially optimized for AtCoder, but we do spend a lot of time on the broader class of problems to which such systems can be applied. So in that sense, we do have a lot of experience with it.
Okay. So you could say that you are already working on very similar problems, and so you have a lot of experience building systems for. So in a way, you just kind of applied this knowledge. Okay, but could you? So I understand that the system for heuristic required way more time than the one for algorithms.
Yeah, for algorithm, I can say that basically.
We did nothing.
Yeah, I spent like maybe a couple of days on this system.
You mean you alone?
Yeah.
Okay.
But basically, it's just like understanding how like AtCoder API works, how to like download the problem, create.
Wait, so you're not using Codex for that?
Well, I'm asking Codex to understand how API works.
Yeah, I usually say that I just manage agents and I'm not doing anything, the agents do.
Yeah, and basically just test that like it works fine on like previous contests. So it wasn't anything like specific for like algorithm competition. We didn't like train specific model, or we didn't like create specific like harness or something like that.
Well, one natural question that comes to my mind is how do you deal with data leakage? But I'm not sure if you can answer that. So if you evaluate it on the past contest, and I guess if it's the current contest, then you can be pretty sure that no solution was published. So is this something you're doing, or you have a magical way of evaluating this on past contests, that you are pretty safe that there's no leakage?
Well, we couldn't rule out some leakage, but if you see that the model doesn't necessarily one-shot the best solutions that are on the internet, then that indicates at least hasn't memorized those. And so you can get a rough sense of it and get signal on the problem.
And also, at least in heuristic problems, for example, on like last year problem, if we see that our system can create solutions which are like 2x better than previous year's best solution, then probably it's not leakage, right? So it's like...
Yeah, that is true. Although, are you saying 2x better than what Rafgil submitted after the contest? I'm not sure.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, that's impressive, because his solution was really good. And it did that within like 24 hours? Or?
Oh, I don't remember like specific...
Yeah, that problem was implementation heavy, for sure. Okay, so we know when GPT 5.6 comes out, so what else do we... I'm not really prepared for the interview, as everyone can see. I have one question that I hope you guys can answer, but I wanted to leave it maybe let's use it now. And I guess I'm looking for a more personal answer, because when do you think people, like regular people, will have access to models, like in terms of capabilities, like the system that you use today? And we're not going into politics, we're completely ignoring that part. Just to be clear, I'm talking because I imagine the cost was maybe it was trivial for OpenAI, but it was definitely non-trivial for a regular person. So at what point you believe that such capabilities might be cheap enough for regular person to invest, and we are ignoring all of the. So that's...
Well, one thing we can disclose, which is probably interesting, is so I mentioned we have different systems are running in parallel, and one of those systems is GPT 5.6 in a single codex thread, and the solutions it's been producing have been competitive with the very top human solutions. Before we walked into this room, it was at the top of the leaderboard. So I would say you will see that capability quite soon.
That's a very diplomatic answer. Okay.
And then the higher tier of capability, I guess, Boris, maybe for context, a useful fact might be to reproduce, say, the performance from last year's system. I think the GPT 5.6 probably is roughly there, like just single-threaded GPT 5.6.
I mean, like basic auto-research on GPT 5.6 would probably get there?
I guess not auto-research, but just like goal mode of Codex.
And just entering continue, like Ralph loop?
Yeah.
Okay.
So in general, I think like from my past experience, like 1 year is usually like enough for like basically like huge scale of the model becomes like available for like humans, and just like Codex or like ChatGPT.
Okay.
For example, in like IOI experience, basically it was the case. So like we showed like this like gold medal level performance, and then like 1 year later you can actually like send those problems to ChatGPT, and it like basically solves the same.
Okay, so that's an interesting data point that I guess around 1 year is this like frontier custom-made thing is essentially within the capabilities of a regular model. That's terrifying. In a way, yeah. We should all go through all stages of grief as fast as we can. Okay. I mean, it's the thing that you've mentioned that you believe that GPT 5.6 should be enough is an interesting data point for me because, well, obviously I didn't have access to it, but I spent maybe not several months, but I extensively tested, mostly used Codex locally, and I did experiment with some auto research like things. I also tested a lot of, I guess they're called Evolve like, so Shinkai Evolve and many other open source implementations. I was surprised that most of the Evolve likes didn't perform very well, which I guess nowadays they feel like a band-aid towards lack of exploration. It kind of worked like a beam search like way of exploring different solutions. But what I want to say is it didn't work very well. I tested extensively 5.5, and my main issue is the lack of exploration and the poor code quality. So from what you're saying, my intuition is that the jump between 5.5 to 5.6 is quite large. And now I'm sounding like I'm like shitting for you guys, which is something I don't want to do. But yeah, I guess since we all have access to it, it's available in Codex. Yeah, we should throw ads. It would be funny. Is it available in Codex 5.6?
I guess not right now, but soon.
Okay, it would be interesting to test that.
Yeah, but in general, you said that you tested it like a couple months ago or something?
Well, I mean, I did like 3 or 4 contests exclusively through Codex and a little bit through Cloud Code, and the results were... I tried many different approaches where some of them in general, I didn't write a single line of code. Sometimes I looked at the code because I was so tired that it couldn't fix a bug that I was like, that I had prompts like, look at line number, like there is an issue over there. It was very poor with code optimization, but I would imagine that if I run like 20 different agents in parallel, eventually, I mean, it's just like reward is clearly defined, so obviously it would get there eventually. Maybe the code would be very ugly and unmaintainable. The progress on the code quality is also like insane. Like I remember the code from the last AWTF. Maybe there's something you guys want to talk about, mention.
Well, I definitely want to give a big shout out to the team who's in the back room right now. Krik, Kanav, and Anais. So, it's not as simple as just click and go. Things happen. So for example, for reasons unrelated to AtCoder, we had to move GPU clusters twice during the competition. And the team was super clutch and did awesome work. So I really, really admire their work.
Is it the case that because of the competition, some people don't have access to GPT because you are short on GPUs?
Well, we still need humans, as good as Codex is.
And you still need humans for submitting solutions, I guess.
That copy paste. Actually, Codex is pretty good at that too now, but
Yeah, I'm just making fun of the manual process. This part was surprising to me. Okay, you probably cannot comment on that, but maybe you can. Let's try. Do you have any future plans for competitive programming? I'm not sure if there's anything else to prove, but...
Yeah, I'm also not sure if we're like winning both algorithm and heuristic. Like it feels like we are kind of showed that like models are capable of this, and now we need to solve like more like real life problems and like do actual like research.
So from my point of view, it would be interesting to know what's the cheapest that you can go that still matches human performance. But yeah, we will see if you have a press release about that. Okay, so maybe let's. I will look at the comments, slightly terrified, and people will give me
Is there a question from the comments?
Yes. What there actually is. I'm not. And the question is to me. So last year, when I overtook the OpenAI model, I went to confession room, and I don't really remember what I was thinking, but thankfully I could rewatch the recording of that, and essentially I was just mumbling under my, randomly mumbling, but at some point I said, OpenAI, your model sucks. So I hoped that you won't perform very well, so I could reuse that part and play it at some point on the live stream. But unfortunately, I mean, there was one time where I could do that, because that was few hours into the contest. You submitted a solution that timed out on all of the tests. That I'm pretty sure gave some hope to the spectators. But yeah, that was essentially the only moment I could do that. But I will maintain that you guys didn't beat me. So like you still have things to prove, and but unfortunately I'm retired, so we'll never know.
How convenient.
Oh yeah, like I planned on doing that anyway. I mean, essentially, I came out of competitive programming retirement last year to do AtCoder, and so I actually didn't plan to compete more. So that was my plan before March versus OpenAI. So sorry, not sorry. Okay, so maybe let's finish the interview here. We will see Boris tomorrow for the stream, for the English stream for algorithms, and maybe someone else. Or maybe you're joining again. I don't know what's the plan. But thank you for coming here. Thank you for surviving my silly questions and enduring that. And hopefully nothing terrible happened. Also, 750 people are watching right now, and before you joined it was around 100. So I think social media did its thing, and I have no clue what happened. Okay.
Cool.
Yeah. So, hopefully, nothing. You haven't said anything that will get you fired, so I won't feel bad about it. Thank you for coming.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
And,
Thank you.
Thank you. And also thank you to the AtCoder organizers who've been...
Oh yeah, so you will have to
great.
thank them. Yes. I'm terrible host. Please.
No, just thanks to the AtCoder team. This has been super fun, and we're very grateful to be here and to compete. And yeah. Also, thank you, Psyho. This was fun chat.
Yeah, I have to, well, try to be a better host next time, assuming there will be next time. I mean, why not? Well, maybe the competitive programming will turn into something like chess. We'll see about that. I mean, we will have so many programmers that will need some entertainment. Oh, that was a very hope. Yeah, let's end with this wonderful thought. Okay,
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Do we